Parramatta legends joining us today both enjoyed career highlights before joining the Eels, earned selection in the inaugural State of Origin match, and achieved significant rugby league records. Both players were also named in Parramatta's Team of the Century. It is my pleasure to welcome Steve Edge and Mick Cronin to the Cumberland Throne. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Michael, if I can begin with you, you've been a country, New South Wales and Australian representative since 1973. Clubs tried to entice you away from Gerringong for years, and indeed you had once, at one stage, agreed to join Canterbury. Can you tell us how this came about that you joined the Eels for the 1977 season?
Look, I'll try and keep it brief. I never actually agreed to join Canterbury. I spoke to Canterbury with no intentions of going, probably, but I did no intentions of going to Sydney, but I did say...
I'll make sure I fire the researcher who came up with that question.
Yeah. No, but I did say if I ever come to Sydney, I'd go to Canterbury, thinking I was never coming to Sydney. So that's the difference. But I did make that statement. So Terry Fearnley first approached me in 1975, and for 18 months I always said he kept annoying me. So when I decided to come to Parramatta, I remembered what I'd said to Canterbury. So Terry Fearnley went and approached him and said, look, he said that he did give you word if he come to Sydney he was coming to Canterbury. But at that stage there was a 13 import rule, and they'd already had their 13 imports. So they said, oh look, we can't hold him to that because we haven't got room for anyone anyway.
The way that gentleman's agreement back then sort of held some stead, which maybe not so today.
Well, I made the statement thinking I was never leaving Gerringong. So, and in Canterbury, Peter Moore's been, spoke very well. I've been good mates with Timmy Pickup for a while, and I just one of those lines to say, look, I've ever come, thinking I was never coming.
Now, you joined a team that were in the grand final in the previous year. How did that affect your mindset, or how did it affect you coming from country football to premiership football?
Look, I probably come to Sydney to prove myself, but how that affected me was that after Parramatta qualified for the 1976 grand final, not after they got beat, the day after they qualified, Terry Fearnley come to see me then about 1977. Now, I've got to be honest, if I was coaching a side and they were 2 weeks away from playing in the grand final, I wouldn't be going to talk to a bloke in Gerringong about coming the next year. I'd be only worried about 2 weeks ahead. So that's probably what proved to me he was definitely fair dinkum, and then he just kept annoying me for the next few months.
Steve, you yourself, speaking of 1977, you played 103 first grade games with St George and won the premiership in 77 and 79, including captaining the Dragons to grand final victory. Was there an adjustment period for you coming from the Dragons over to Parramatta?
When I went over, everyone, Ronnie Hilditch, I think is one of the best players I've ever played with. And if you're in the trenches, he's the guy that you'd want beside you. And I got welcomed with open arms from him, Pricey, Crow, all of them. They couldn't do enough for me, to make sure that I was welcome, and that was certainly made it really easy for me.
The thing about football clubs, everyone wants to succeed. If you go to a different club, you've got to be a mug if you don't get on. You really have. If you've got any sort of normal, if you go to a club, they all want to win, they all want to succeed. And if you're genuine, you'll get on. But as I said, if you don't get on, you've probably got to have a look at yourself more than the club you're at.
Now, first question for the two of you. You were opponents before you were teammates. Do you have any memories of playing against one another?
Well, he's a back and I'm a footballer. I never played against him all that much, but I know he used to... I tackled you once, didn't I?
Yeah, you might have.
Yeah, he had to run 15 metres across to get to me because I had no speed at all. But Mick's there. We played Origin together, and we played against each other in grand finals and the like. He's much better to play with in a grand final than against.
Mick, you care to return soon?
Well, I did miss a goal, so he should remember in 1977 it would have made me very popular in the St George area for a long while, because I still met all the supporters. But the thing about I was a back and he was a footballer. I mean, they always used to say 8 to 13, no brains, and I'm not too sure about that. But look, when you look back, St George were a side, because they beat us in that grand final, and there was always a bit of rivalry there. So But look, as for individuals goes, he's right when he did say, he was in the forwards, I I never went in there looking for anyone to annoy, and not too many of them come out my. They were out my way. They were very lazy doing nothing because they were out my side of the field. So.
We want to ultimately talk about 1981, but before we get to that sense of victory, you guys both lost a premiership. Michael, you lost in 77. Steve, it was in 75 with St George. How does that loss affect your preparation for an ultimate win? Does it affect you as a player deeply, or is it something you just forget about and move on?
Well, when you lose one, I'm telling you, you're just devastated, you know. But I remember 75, and you know we were quite into the game a fair way, and then of course Roosters just picked up and won, and I know all of us were pretty well, certainly a couple of young blokes who were playing in that side, and you feel devastated. And when we went back to the club, we were you know very, very down and all that, and a little bloke by the name of Billy Smith, who was very, very helpful in my career. He was my role model, and he took a shine to me and taught me how to train, which is probably him and Johnny Peard, believe it or not, which, you know, that's exact. Both of them said the same thing. You know, mate, you've got to be the best trainer, otherwise you're not going to make it, you know, and they were right. Anyhow, so we all got back, everyone was down, and Billy's gone, well, you guys have got to be kidding. You know, we got there. There's 10 other teams who didn't get there, and mate, just be proud of yourselves and let's go. And we're going to, you know, just try harder next year, and things will go our way.
You remember then? They're the worst days in your life. Yeah, the worst days. They're the worst days of your life, the losing ones, but you get over it, right? Someone said to me, rang me this year after the grand final in Sydney, and they said, how will Hunt get over? You know, how will that affect Hunt? I said, listen, you're talking to a bloke who's missed a couple of goals in the grand finals. I said, listen, if you don't get over it, I said, you get on with life. I said, it's just, I said, you're not going to do everything, you're not going to win every one. But I said, if that beats you, well, you're wasting your time. I said, you get over it and get on with it. But they're the ones you're easy to remember, because the wins, you just lock them away because they're always there. But the losses are the ones that always come back to haunt you. They're always the ones that people talk about. But the wins you just lock away. But you get on with it, you don't. You know. You're going to, my first year at Parramatta, after we got beat, a woman came up to me, she came up to me and she said, you wouldn't have to hide to come back next year. I couldn't, I said, I remember I looked at her, I said, I hadn't really thought about it yet. She said, you wouldn't have to hide to come back next year. But we become friends after a while.
The odd thing about that, and it's a bit like the Neville Glover try that, you know, or the non-try that Neville's he just had it forever, and Hunt will have that forever. But like with Neville's try, it wasn't that good a pass. It was an absolute shocker. It's up around here, and Crow's kick, they say, oh yeah, it was sort of in front of it. I said, bullshit, it was on the, sorry. It was actually on the, you know, it was on the sideline, because that's where Pricey scored.
Look, it's funny about the kick. Look, first year I played in Gerringong, we won a grand final with a goal kick, you know, and people say about nerves. When we scored to go 9-all, I'm thinking, no, this is history repeating itself. You know, I'm thinking, but I was wrong again. But I just, you know, as for the pressure, I thought, oh, we've got the 9-all, this is one of those things, you know. I haven't said that it was an ordinary kick, but I'm just saying, you know, that's just part of life. But the losses annoy you, but you've got to get over it, otherwise if you spend all your time looking backwards, you'll never go forward too far.